Well, quite. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll just see the two happy, smiling faces staring at you in front of your screen. That can only mean it's time for another NFL podcast. Laces out, brought to you by the good folks here at the Cookie Cast Podcast Network. Obviously, just the two faces, therefore no guest this week, which I'm assuming Mr.
I
Cook will explain. No.
I did my due diligence in the guest realm. If we'd have had a guest, I don't think you would have liked it. So I'm thinking you'd have been glad that the guest was unavailable to attend this week. So I was kind of a bit like, the guest's unavailable, but I think Paul will be okay with that. So maybe it's okay across the board. Um,
Who would that have been? Oh, oh,
yes,
that guy.
he is unavailable. You'll be pleased to hear.
That guy. I see. Yeah, it's probably best that he's not been able to guest appear on the podcast so far this season, given how our fantasy matchup went. But we won't get into that.
No.
That we won't bring the tone down any more than we have to. So like we say, no guest. So therefore no guest picks. So we'll just dive straight in with what happened in week 15. So week 15 meant the end of the bye weeks. All teams have now had their bye, and we're back to a slate of 16 games each particular week. So last week we did have a guest in the form of Mr. Matthew Moore making his second guest appearance of the week of the season. Apologies. And he supplied his picks alongside myself and Mr. Cook, and those picks went as follows. Third, with 8 of 16 selections correct, which is absolutely fine, as that is halfway.
Halfway
With that,
point.
Mr. Matthew Moore.
Oh, okay.
So he incorrectly had selected the Broncos to beat the Lions, the Falcons to beat the Panthers, the Bears to beat the Browns, the Packers to beat the Bucks, the Giants to beat the Saints, the Titans to beat the Texans, the Cowboys to beat the Bills, and the Eagles to beat the Seahawks. And there was at least two of those teams where he was very unfortunate with. You would argue that he was very unfortunate picking the Bears to beat the Browns, as that was an incredibly close game, and the Titans to beat the Texans, as that game had gone to overtime. So yeah, that
Not
was
gonna not gonna
that was
lie. Listening to you go through those picks, I was like, absolutely every single one of those. Like those first few picks, I was like, every single one of those is a valid pick. If you're picking a team to beat the Panthers, get your house on that one. So yeah,
no, I'd have to go back and listen to last week's podcast, but I believe that I may have said that we all picked the Falcons to beat the Panthers, but divisional matchups do weird things to teams, and it wouldn't surprise me therefore if the Panthers end up pulling that one out, or what's more likely is the Falcons manage to find a way to, pardon my French, fuck it up. Um, the weather didn't look particularly nice
no, it
in
didn't.
Carolina,
It
which probably
did
wasn't
not.
which probably wasn't helping the situation. But still, this is bear in mind the Carolina Panthers that had one win all season. So myself and Andrew had 15 of 16 selections exactly the same. So the one game that we had different would be the game that would determine which of us won the week. So with 11 out of 16 and 12 out of 16 results correct, respectively, The one difference being that one of us had the Raiders to beat the Chargers, and one of us had the Chargers to beat the Raiders. Getting the win this week, thanks to the Las Vegas Raiders, even Paul Williams with the 12 of 16 selections correct. Now, I think to give you your due there, I believe when we did this, when we did the recording and you made your selections, I don't think uh, Justin Herbert was officially out for the season, or if he was, it was literally only just coming through as we were recording.
I believe
So
there may have been a text message in our our little group that may have come after a certain podcast was recorded that may have gone with it every time. It's every time. Also, it doesn't account for the absolute pasting that was laid upon them. But yes, the Magic 8 Ball let me down on that one.
yeah, not the best. So Andy was let down, of course, by the Chargers. He also had the Steelers to beat the Colts, which didn't happen. The Falcons to beat the Panthers, which didn't happen. The Packers to beat the Bucks, which didn't happen. And the Eagles to beat the Seahawks, which didn't happen. So my four that let me down were the Steelers, the Falcons, the Packers, and the Eagles. Um, so yeah, so for the first time in what seems like almost the entire season, I managed to get a point for week. So that moves me on to 2.5 points for the season. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. The heady heights. Andy stays on 5 points for the season, and the guest remains on 7.5 points for the season. So I believe at this point I would need to win pretty much every week, including the Super Bowl, to win at this point. But that's probably not going to happen. So we'll keep an eye on it and we'll keep it going. But let's be honest, I'm not particularly hopeful or particularly.
Never say never.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I
When
could say never in this one.
when dealing with the National Football League, I would never say never. You know, I would say something like, I don't know, the Falcons beat Panthers is an absolute banker. Let's get our house. So, at some point, we probably need to address the elephant in the room, which was the last game of the week, because that's becoming a bit of a trend. I saw some training footage. They're trying to address an issue at quarterback, I believe, whilst certain media outlets are calling for a replacement of said quarterback. So yeah. However, I believe there is other business afoot, so we can put a pin in that for now.
So the other business that might be afoot is, of course, the small matter of Week 15's side bet. So obviously, for those that are new to the format, that is where myself and Mr. Cooks each select 4 games from the slate of the 16 or the slate of the games that are on that week. We pick our 4, what we would determine absolute bankers to win. Once they've been selected, the game is removed from the slate, a bit like draft style. So, Andy started off with the Miami Dolphins to beat the New York Jets. Very well selected. The Jets didn't even score a point. The San Francisco 49ers to beat the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals put up a little bit of a fight, but not much. 2 points. The Los Angeles Rams to beat the Washington Commanders. I think at one point the Rams were very comfortable in this one, the Commanders did bring it back to within one touchdown at the end, but weren't able to get it any closer than that. 3 points. And finally, the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's another big tick right there. So Mr. Cook getting the 4 out of 4, the vaunted 4 out of 4 clean sweep. Well done, sir. That moves you on to 35 points for the season so far. My 4 selections were the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the New England Patriots. Correct. The Cleveland Browns to beat the Chicago Bears, which at one point looked like it was very much in jeopardy, but they did pull it out of the bag in the end. And the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Minnesota Vikings. That was another one that looked like it might have been up for debate at one point, but the Bengals did in fact pull it out at the end. The one team that let me down, however, was the aforementioned Atlanta Falcons playing the 1-13 or whatever it was, Carolina Panthers. Yeah, so I only got the 3 points for the week. So that moves me on to 41 points. So Andy is chipping away at that lead. It was 8 just a couple of weeks ago. It's now down to 6. So it's going in the right direction. Slowly but surely, he's getting there.
It's time to pull out the full boat versus Nilpois week, I believe. So that's this week. Just there we go.
So week 15 picks done. Week 15 side bet done. Week 15's stats coming at you right now.
So, stats mistress on the bobby so far, and I believe we are on for some stats from this year, which is useful. These are the NFL Week 15 stats brought to us by the stats mistress, brought to her by Nate Davis of USA Today. The way I disseminate, is that the correct usage? The stats is basically I look at how many there is, divide it by the number of people. I keep the first lot, and then I send X number of stats to the other people. When it's myself and Paul, it's very simple. I usually give Paul more if there's more, and I just send the bottom half straight through. I don't look at them. I don't do them. I'm very much a off-the-cuff kind of guy. Having sent the stats and lined them all up, made them look pretty, sent them through, and then I went to the top of the stats and went, damn it, I'd really like to have got Paul to read these. Number 1, the Buffalo Bills have won 3 of 4 to the firing offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey. We all like the Bills. Averaging 29.3 points in their stretch following Sunday's 31-10 rollover of the Dallas Cowboys, a beatdown that knocked America's team out of first place in the NFC. Delicious. Number 2, the Bills remain stuck in 9th place overall in the AFC, a spot to which they ascended Saturday, but their 8th and 6th mark matches the Cincinnati Bengals, Indianapolis Colts, and Houston Texans. And those clubs aren't playing the Los Angeles Chargers and New England Patriots the next 2 weeks. As for the Cowboys, their 4th road loss and 3rd embarrassing one following earlier setbacks at Arizona and San Francisco raises serious questions about their viability as a Super Bowl contender, which, while also damaging quarterback Dak Prescott's MVP. Oh, such a shame. Number 4, the Chargers may be in the market for a new coach, but good news for interim boss Giff Smith. Given fellow substitute teachers Antonio Pierce of the Las Vegas Raiders and Chris Tabor of the Carolina Panthers got wins in Week 15, Pierce is obvious very much coming at the Bolts' expense in Thursday's 63-21 assault. Need to phone the police. There's been a murder. Number 5, prior to this weekend, the Minnesota Vikings, 15 points per game, and Denver Broncos, 16 points per game, had the league's stingiest defenses over the previous 9 weeks. Then they combined to surrender 69 points in Saturday's crippling losses for their playoff hopes. Number 6, and over the preceding 5 weeks, no defense had more airtight than the Patriots. 11 points per game, 247.3 yards allowed. It got torched for 27 points and 326 yards by the Kansas City Chiefs, supposedly struggling offense. My final stat. Number 7, the Green Bay Packers head coach, Matt LaFleur, lost 2 games in a 6-day period, his team falling to New York Giants and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With the old NFC Central Battle of the Bays going to the Bucs, it's Tampa that looks like a much more viable playoff outfit than the Pack. The Super Bowl 55 champs suddenly closing in on their 3rd straight division round. That is it for my stats. Over to you, sir, for more of those juicy stats.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of the Giants, the New Orleans Saints turned the tables on rookie quarterback Tommy DeVito's Italian celebrations in Sunday's 24-6 runaway. League MVP candidate and leading receiver Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins missed his first game of the season with an ankle injury last Sunday. Still, at 1,542 receiving yards, the Cheetah would have to average nearly 153 yards over the final 3 weeks to reach his record-breaking 2,000-yard season, or to reach his record-breaking 2,000-yard goal for the season, sorry. Hill does have 5 150-plus yard efforts in 2023 and another of 146. So it's not out of the realms of possibility that he could still do it, really. Obviously, it'll take a mammoth effort, but if he could do it in 16 games, then it's even more impressive. But we'll see. Carrying that on, despite his absence, the Dolphins whitewashed the New York Jets 30-0. Miami running back Raheem Mostert rushed for 2 touchdowns, meaning he's reached the end zone 20 times this season, a Dolphins single-season record. If Mostert is on your fantasy team, seems likely you're winning your league. The Jets were also eliminated from the playoffs for the 13th consecutive season. The NFL's longest active drought continues for another year. See you next year, Aaron Rodgers. Keeping on that similar theme, the Tennessee Titans are no longer eligible for the postseason either, after Sunday's overtime loss to the C.J. Stroudless Houston Texans. Excuse me. Speaking of would-be MVPs, you can't discount San Francisco 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey. Like Mostert, CMC has 20 touchdowns after scoring 3 against the Arizona Cardinals, an effort that helped the Niners officially lock down the NFC West. And my final stat, and therefore the final stat of the week, Detroit Lions tight end Sam Laporta won't win Offensive Rookie of the Year honors and probably can't hope to finish much better than 3rd behind Stroud and Rams wide receiver Puka Nacua. Still, Laporta became the first rookie at his position during the Super Bowl era with at least 700 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns after hauling in 3 scores in Saturday night's win over Denver. Detroit looked pretty good to win the NFC North, which would be the first time in their history they've won that division. As the last time they won a division title, I believe it was when the divisions were still East, West, and Central. So there you go. That is your stats. Done and dusted. Tied up, neat little bow, put it in the corner, forget about it for the week. So, week 15 is in the books. Week 16 is fast approaching. And myself, Mr. Cook, and the guest for this week have provided our week 16 picks. And our guest picks for this particular week come in the form of the stats mistress herself, Ms. Leanne Davies. So I will reopen the game log as I kind of balls this up last week. As I said, there was just the one game on the Saturday, and it turned out there was quite a lot of games on the Saturday, sorry. So I will go through as we speak. And we still have a Thursday night football fixture for the next 2 weeks. Obviously, week 18, when that rolls around, all the games will be played on Sunday. So we open the week with the New Orleans Saints traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. This is the Thursday night football. We have a split opinion on this one. Myself and the stats mister have gone for the Rams. Andy fancies the Saints to get the win in this one.
So I've changed the way I'm doing picks this week. I'm trying to close the gap. I'm trying to lock in a few more of those weekly picks to try and win the season. However, apparently to me that means just going absolutely wild. Looking at those two teams and going, that's the team that's going to win. What if it's not? Those are the points. Those are the missing points. So I've gone completely off book, shooting from the hip.
So that's the Thursday night game. The next game takes place on Saturday at 9:30 p.m. UK time. So that will be 5:30 p.m. No, it wouldn't. That is terrible maths. 4:30 p.m. East Coast time. Yes. And it sees the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers playing on a Saturday. Oh, actually, both of these teams playing on a Saturday for the second consecutive week. Probably unsurprisingly, we've all taken the Bengals on that one. That would mean that the Steelers have lost a fourth game in a row, and they are at home, and it is a divisional rival. So whilst we have all taken the Bengals in that one, I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers do pull it out of their arse. And they do still have the fact that Mike Tomlin's never had a single losing season still.
Yep.
So we'll see. We'll see. Also taking place on the Saturday, technically, obviously over here in the UK, it is 1 a.m. on the Sunday morning, but it is technically a Saturday in the States. We have the Buffalo Bills traveling to Los Angeles to take on the LA Chargers. You'll be shocked to hear we've all taken the Bills in that one, not really fancying the Chargers backup and battered offensive line and all their battered players that are who step up to the plate. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate of games, and this is back to the usual 6 p.m. slot or 1 p.m. slot if you're in the States. We have the Colts taking on the Atlanta Falcons. We've all backed the Colts. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers at the Carolina Panthers. Myself and Andy have taken the Packers in that one. Leanne has gone with the Panthers, obviously thinking they're going to ride a crest of a wave after their second win of the season. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns at the Houston Texans. Myself and Andy have taken the Browns in that one, whereas Leanne has taken the Texans. Home field advantage, obviously, given to the Texans by the stats mistress there. Let's see if it pans out that way. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders at the New York Jets. That is two teams who I believe have already been eliminated from post-season contention. So not an awful lot to play for there. I'm on my own in this one. I've gone with the Jets to get the win, whereas Andy and Leanne have both taken the Commanders. The only reason I've taken the Jets is because there's nothing really to play for. So when the pressure's off, you never know. You might see some teams start throwing it about a little bit more than they would, with a little bit less sort of reckless abandon, and well, more reckless abandon as there's nothing on the line. So you never know. Might see the Jets sort of cut loose. Maybe start trying out some things for next season. See how they get on. The next game sees the Seattle Seahawks traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Myself and Andy have backed the Seahawks in that one. Stats Mistress has taken the Titans. Who knows? Next up, it is the shift to the 9 o'clock games. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa. I've gone with the Jags, whereas Andy and Leanne have taken the Bucks in that one. The 9:25 games, two of these sees the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Chicago Bears. Leanne has given the edge to the Cardinals, whereas me and Andy have gone with the Bears in that one. Early contender, I say early contender, it's one of the later slate games, but the Cowboys at the Dolphins. Obviously, last week we said that game of the week should really be Cowboys Bills. Certainly didn't pan out that way when the Cowboys absolutely shat the bed. But you never know. Let's hope that the Cowboys can dust themselves off, go a little bit, go again, have more of a game of it against the Dolphins. Andy and Leanne have said that the Dolphins will win this one, probably quite comfortably. I have backed the Cowboys in this one, as there's something about the Dolphins that I don't know if it's just when they play against slightly on paper better teams than them, they sometimes struggle. And I would say that I'd just give the edge to the Cowboys over the two teams, and I think that might play on the Dolphins' mind. I might be wrong. I might be wrong. So that's the sort of the regular timings all done. We then have the Sunday night football sees the New England Patriots taking on the Denver Broncos. We've all gone for the Broncos. No great surprise there. We then move to Christmas Day. Christmas Day football. Interesting. 3 games. First up, we have the Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. No surprise. We've all taken the Chiefs. The New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. We've all taken the Eagles. And late on Christmas Day / early on Boxing Day, if you want to class it that way. What is realistically game of the week sees the number 1 seed AFC, Baltimore Ravens, taking on the number 1 seed NFC, San Francisco 49ers. Some people will say this is just an early prelude to what the Super Bowl might end up being at the end of January / early February. Andy and Leanne have both gone with the San Francisco 49ers. I've gone a little bit left field here, and I'm going with the Ravens on that one. I think the Ravens have proven that they can get it done when they're sort of up against it, and they're like,
Absolutely.
They've been behind in games. They've needed to have late drives to win games, and they've always managed to pull something out. I reckon they can get the job done here against the 49ers, personally. Um, so there you have it. That is the 16 game slate done in full for myself, Mr. Cook, and the guest this week. All that's left is for myself and Mr. Cook to make our 4 selections apiece for the side bet. So we're going to take ourselves off, have a little dust down, maybe compose ourselves, and we're going to pick out 4 of the juiciest games from our perspective that tickle our fancy. We're actually going to take a short break. You don't have to do anything. It'll pop straight back up in your feed. We'll be back in 2 minutes. You see, like we said, seamless. You didn't have to go anywhere. So, just the side bet left to do for myself and Mr. Cook for week 16. So, going into week 16, Andy's on 35 points. I'm on 41. Technically, Andy won the week, but because he's still behind in the standings, I will offer up the same as we have done in the previous week. I'll offer him the chance to go first or put me in first. Which would you prefer to do, Mr. Cook?
I'll take the honours, and the absolute game to go with making a selection is that last game. It's the Ravens 49. Absolutely not. Absolutely, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Can you imagine if it was a case of there was only one game, like you only got to pick one game, but it was worth like 8 points, and the absolute set of stones on this guy if he just waded straight in with the, yeah, I'll take that game.
That's the one for
No
me.
biggie.
No, it is. It is not the game I will be picking. Feel free to pick it up. I would like to take as my first selection the Buffalo Bills to beat the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yep, it was the game that stood out like a sore thumb to me, and absolutely was going to be where I was going had you not snaffled it up. Excellent sledding, my friend. Um, in that case, I will go with the Denver Broncos to beat the New England Patriots.
I thought I could slide that one from out from under you, but apparently not.
I'm not going to lie, not a massive fan that I've picked it, but Patriots out of contention for the postseason, not really much to play for. Be surprised if they get the win. I will also take the Philadelphia Eagles
Mm,
to beat the New York Giants and
darn it.
arrest what's becoming a pretty alarming slide for the
Yeah,
Eagles.
like I said earlier, we may have to look at addressing the elephant in the room. That is, what the hell is happening with the 10-4 Eagles, where they just all of a sudden now then. I think if you jump back to the episode we did with JFG, this was mentioned. What was mentioned at that point in time is the Eagles look amazing. They look worldy. They look world beaters on paper, on the field, week in, week out. The Eagles are a team that can so easily flip. It's breakneck, and apparently we were a couple of weeks out on that one. It is absolutely a game I would have been all over if, like before, you hadn't snaffled that one away. So now we get into the it might be seen as a bit of a I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah,
I know the Raiders had an absolute banger of a game, but I know the Chiefs have been a little off form recently. But and the other pick I'm going to take here is the Green Bay Packers to beat the 2-12 Carolina Panthers.
All I'll say there is I was burnt by that one last week. Just saying.
Yeah.
Do 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 do. This is tougher than I thought it was going to be. Actually, I'll go for the Lions to
Ah,
beat the
you.
Vikings. And my last one, oof, I don't really like it, but I'll go with the Colts to beat the Falcons,
Hmm.
which leaves you with the final selection, sir.
And look at my options. They are. Don't know if I can. I don't know if I can say that one. I mean, what's left by the numbers might be the safer pick, but then that one's speaking to me a little bit more. Podcast gold, as obvious, obvious, but I don't know if they can get it done. The Chicago Bears to beat the Arizona Cardinals is the choice I have taken over, in case you were wondering, the Seattle Seahawks to beat the Tennessee Titans. I really wanted to go with the Seahawks to do that. My issue is those sneaky Titans are a bit of an enigma at times. So I, I had to go with and I hate that I'm going to say the what might be safer pick. But yes, that's that. And then we can all come back next week. Not technically next week. We can all come back next time and laugh at me heartily. Silly selections.
So, to clarify, Andy's 4 teams he had taken the Bills to beat the Chargers in Los Angeles, the Chiefs to beat the Raiders in Kansas City, the Packers to beat the Panthers in Carolina, and the Bears to beat the Cardinals in Chicago. I have gone for the Broncos to beat the Patriots in Denver, the Eagles to beat the Giants in Philadelphia, the Lions to beat the Vikings in Minnesota, and the Colts to beat the Falcons in Atlanta. That brings to an end your week 15 roundup, week 16 predictions, and brings to an end this week's podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, as always, for joining myself and Mr. Cook, and by proxy, the Stats Mistress, to take you through the wonderful ins and outs, ups and downs, tributes and turmoil that is the National Football League. Join us again next week, where it will have a slightly different flavour to it, which I will get into at the start of the recording. It'll be a little bit different. You might be able to work out why, just based on the timings. But again, I will explain at the start of the next podcast what the crack is and whatnot. So, as always, thank you for joining us. Tune in again next week, where we'll do it all over again for you. But until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and it's tatty bye for now.